Welcome to the CHCH Newsmakers podcast. I'm your host, Rick Zamperin. If it's making news in Hamilton, Halton, and Niagara, across Canada or around the world, we are tackling it here on Newsmakers. The Hamilton-Burlington SPCA has launched an ambitious plan to create a new animal welfare campus. Why is this being done? What's it going to look like? How much is it going to cost? And where's it going to be? And most importantly, how will it impact animal care in our area? With us today to answer those questions and a little bit more is Brad Grabell, the Director of Strategy at the Hamilton-Burlington SPCA. Brad, thanks for joining us today.
Delighted to join you.
This is, wow, as I said in the intro, an ambitious plan. How did you come up with this idea?
Definitely not just me. I mean,
Okay.
Wish I could take all the credit. We have an incredibly innovative CEO on our team, and we're very fortunate to have him. We are powered by over 300 volunteers who all give us their ideas, by the way, and that fuels us and has helped us to, I think, bring this vision to life. And we're a small but lean team of staff, but many of us have been involved in this project, and I'd say it's probably over a decade in the making. And part of that was a relationship with the City of Hamilton that we've been working through, and we got to a really successful outcome together. And so we'll be continuing to partner together in the future, and that's allowed us to pave way for this new campus.
So was this a spacing issue? Is it just taking the SPCA into the new millennium, even though we're already here?
I mean, I think any charity in Canada right now, and obviously it's cliche to say things changed after COVID, but it did.
Sure.
We lost a lot of charities, and I think a lot of charities had to ask themselves, do we need social enterprises? How many of them do we need? What will our donations look like as one of the most charitable generations comes through our way and our doors, and what does the future of animal welfare look like? So I think every charity across Canada is starting to think about how do we become an innovative business. So, we're unique in that way that I think we've come to the forefront of it, and in many ways, yes, we are a charity, but we do put our business hat on from time to time, and this is one of those times to really meet the moment. There's some pretty scary projections ahead of what animal welfare is going to look like. We're living in a time when there's a generation coming up that will have probably double-digit animals in their household over their lifetime, so more than the average person has as kids. So the amount of animals that are going to be in our lives in the future is going to be exponential, and so we're trying to get ahead of that curve and meet the demand.
Do we know why that's going to happen?
I mean, listen, less people are having kids. I think there's a whole factor of economic and environmental challenges that we cannot control as a charity. What I think we can do is support all of those people that are going to have fantastic companions, and there's so many benefits that come with having a cat, a dog, or any other companion animal. And we need to make sure that that's not a luxury for people. There's so many mental health benefits. The list goes on when you have a companion animal, and it shouldn't be an exclusive piece. An animal can be your best friend, and so we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to have an animal and that we can be there to support the entire journey of that.
The current SPCA facilities on Dartnell Road, anyone
Yes.
who's adopted a pet or taken one in for animal care knows exactly where it is. So will this campus be an addition to that or something entirely new?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
Not an easy answer to your question, but the new campus will actually happen right next door to our existing facility that we have today. It's about 4 to 5 times the size of our existing facility, and once we're done, it'll actually come together. So the two buildings will come together to form a 6+ acre master plan pet first campus.
So what's going to be different, apart from having a new addition? What is going to be new that is going to be in that facility that people can rely upon?
Everything's going to be different is the best way to, there is no SPCA across Canada and maybe even North America that I think is tackling the challenge the way that we want to tackle it. So in our future, within the next 5 years, by 2030, we're expecting a massive surge, 40 to 50% in overcrowding in shelters. And that's going to be paired with a 20% decline in access to veterinary care. When those two things come together, that's not great news for our business, for our charity. And so what makes this different is we need to turn animal welfare on its head. And what I mean by that is every other shelter across the country is usually, when they go into a renovation or a new build like this, they're thinking about more space to house more cats and dogs. And we will do that. We're going to have about 3 to 4 times as many housing units for these animals, far more spacious, humane, noise reducing, fantastic outcomes. But equally as important to that is we need to get in front of that curve, meaning what are the 103 different intervention points we can have with families so that surrender actually becomes the last option. So instead of thinking ourselves as primarily as a shelter, we're making this animal welfare hub a staple in your life so that from birth all the way to end of life, the entire journey of a pet, we will be there for you. And so you can think of that in many forms. You can think of that in terms of our new food bank. So we're now Canada's largest pet food bank. We did just over 3 million free pet meals last year. We'll do just over 6 in our first year of opening in this new facility. That's just one example of when folks are going through a hard time, usually for a short period of time. They shouldn't have to choose between paying their bills and feeding their pet. Right. And right now, that decision can lead to a surrender, which it's not a great outcome for anybody. And so this animal welfare hub is about supporting that entire journey. Whether it be food insecurity, whether it be actual wellness, which is probably the largest component, the actual health care of that animal, we're going to provide it all in this facility. We're not just your place where you come to adopt anymore, or even just a spay and neuter. We'll be there for the whole journey.
This is a first of its kind facility. This hasn't been done before, right?
Yeah, we tend to go big or go home. Absolutely, it is.
Does this also mean more space? You're going to be providing more services. Does this also mean you need more volunteers, or are you going to be hiring more people?
Absolutely. So the only thing that makes this model as scalable as it is by the time we get to the completion of our first year, our operations will be supported by 90% of volunteers. So we will be the largest volunteer-powered animal welfare team by that point. There'll literally be just shy of 900 volunteers that will be supporting our organization. Today we have just over 300. So the scale is achievable with those volunteers, but it's vital to make sure that all of the animals are getting more one-on-one time, more enrichment. That's how we make sure that our animals have a great stay and have accelerated adoption outcomes.
In terms of those volunteers, are you reaching out already, or is that going to be a process that you launch later on?
We're working on it, but one of the great things about our industry is people love pets. So, and we're one of the few charities that you can work for where you can have direct interaction with pets. And that's not to say that every volunteer position we have is with pets. Some folks complete thank you calls to our donors. So the diversity and the spectrum that you can participate as a volunteer is massive. But I would say that the growth engine for that is already happening. And the number one advocate for us is our volunteers. We work really hard to make sure that they're happy and they enjoy their time. And in turn, they become our number one growth engine to bring their family and friends to work with us.
I was doing some research on some of the different things that are going to be in this animal welfare campus. One of them is a rehab center. Can you discuss this?
Yeah, rehab is part of healthcare. And today I just want to clarify, we do have an animal hospital, but because it's so small, we're really only able to do two things: provide healthcare for the animals in our care and provide spay and neuter to help make sure that we're doing our part to control the pet population in Hamilton and Burlington. But beyond that, something we don't do today is things like physiotherapy, behavioral specialization. So when you're talking about what does therapy mean, it literally means we will have someone on staff paired with volunteers who will actually do physiotherapy, acupuncture, exercises with these animals in post-recovery coming out of surgery. And all of that is designed to make sure that they can have a faster and accelerated adoption outcome. We did an experiment about a year ago where we launched the first adoption platform globally on Shopify. So we didn't use anybody else's software. We built our own. And we have a tendency to do that. And what it showed us was that we were able to drive a reduction in the amount of days that our dogs were staying in care by 50%. So literally half the amount of time. This is just one other piece that builds onto that. Everything we can do for the pet is going to make sure they're in our care for less time and get to a family faster.
And that's also a money saver as well, right? The dog is not in your care for that extra 50%.
Absolutely. We're a lean organization. We're incredibly efficient with our donor dollars. We're very grateful for all the donors that we have. And so everything we can do to drive down that cost. And I do want to touch on another critical point, which is that every intervention point that we have that we can help support a family so they don't have to surrender a pet to us is also, to your point, an economic benefit to our charity, because the cost for us to bring an animal in, provide all of the health care, and then find that rehoming, it is significant to us as an organization. So we've actually done all the financial modeling, of course, and we've found that everything we're adding to our animal welfare hub, even if it's a free or discounted service to people, therapy, a spay and neuter, all of those things will actually save us in the long run.
What is the ballpark cost when someone does surrender an animal and before it gets out to another family?
It's really hard because it's so unique.
Are we talking hundreds of dollars?
We're talking thousands.
Wow.
Yeah, and it can easily be $10,000 to $25,000. It depends.
Wow.
Like someone might, a pet might need a surgery. That's really significant. And sometimes they may be in our care for 90 days, 6 months, depending on what the recovery phase of that looks like. It's quite rare, but I would say on average it's several $1,000s for every pet that comes into our care.
Another component of this campus, a diagnostics lab. So what's happening in this part of the facility?
That's really important for speed, efficiency, and cost for us. What it means is because we will have our own walk-in veterinary clinic, which I'm sure we'll get to, but also paired with our spay-neuter in our own hospital and all of our shelter vets. Today, we outsource a lot of our diagnostics, which means waiting for the results and delaying care for those animals. So things like blood work or fecal tests we'll be able to do in-house, make sure that those animals are being able to be triaged faster, basically. Treatment plan starts earlier, adoption happens faster.
Let's get to the vet clinic, because this will be a big component as well.
I'd say that's probably the largest difference. And I think when we say your relationship with the SPCA is about to fundamentally change, it is. We've been around for 135 years, more than that now, almost 150. We're almost as old as Canada is a country. And the relationship that most people have had with their SPCA has been mostly one of advocacy maybe, and I'd say spay and neuter as well as adoption. That's what we're known for. This changes that because healthcare is a really core piece. And if you think about our current healthcare system in Canada, we do have a private healthcare system, but we have a public. We don't have that in Canada for pets. So our pets, we have great private veterinary healthcare, but we don't have a public option. And so the SPCA is now becoming that for these families. And so what that means is literally families can come and walk in. You don't need an appointment. We'll have more than 8 exam rooms where you can come and be triaged, figure out what's going on. We'll be able to have pharmaceutical products that can be dispensed. We have multiple full-time vets on staff and registered veterinary technicians. So it'll be a full suite. We will be able to support the entire journey. And that's just the walk-in clinic. That's a referral mechanism to things like actual surgery in our operating rooms and all the things that your pet will need to support its lifetime care. But that's fundamentally different for us.
Absolutely. What are area veterinarians saying? Are they against this, saying, hey, you're cutting into our territory, or are they for it, saying, we need some help in this regard?
That's a really good question. I think when we started talking about this 2 to 3 years ago, we thought that we would be viewed as a competitor to veterinarians in our space. But, we talked earlier about that 20% shortage, which I actually think will be much larger. I think that it's going to be much more scarce than that. And so I don't think there's going to be any shortage of business, so to speak. Yeah. We're dealing with a challenge where there's just quite simply not enough veterinarians in the market to be able to support the healthcare that needs to be provided to these animals. And by the way, we partner with all these veterinarians. So, we have great partnerships with these folks. We love working with them. We certainly don't want to be a competitor. We actually want to be the stopgap and help to make sure that anywhere where a pet is falling through the cracks, we're there to be there for them.
Another part of this campus, a training center. Is this for cats and dogs or just dogs?
Yeah, this is really important because so many people, it is actually very challenging when you have a behavioral issue with your pet to find really good and reliable support that you're going to trust. And that could range from, very mild to potentially even like aggression issues. There's dogs that have been euthanized before for, it's required by the city and most municipalities. If a dog bites someone, oftentimes that can be required to lead towards a euthanasia. We usually don't deal with those, but we can be a preventative piece to that, which means come to us, and we offer training in a variety of ways, by the way. So the care center will offer things like 7-week classes. Come every Monday in a group setting, and we'll work with you for puppy training, everything from pee pads to, to walking properly on a leash. But we also deal with really difficult challenges, and this is important both for the community but also our own pets. So that same space you're talking about has a dual purpose. It's for the community to prevent surrender. I have a difficult, dog. Maybe they're just barking a lot. My neighbors are complaining, and I really want to make sure that I can keep my dog. I love him. Right. And so we can work through that with them. On the other side, we can work with our own dogs that are currently in our care to help improve their behavior and their cognitive abilities so that by the time they're ready for adoption, we can do it much faster.
It's pretty sweet. This last one sounds almost like a movie, a doggy daycare.
I love doggy daycare. Yeah. And by the way, we have a cat daycare too.
Okay.
But yes, we love our dogs and our cats. But this is important for families in emergency situations, but also a convenience thing. And when I say that your relationship with the SPCA is about to fundamentally change, it is, because we will become a service provider to you as well, which acts for us as a social enterprise revenue piece. So we can help generate some revenue there that helps to feed into supporting our shelter animals and reducing our reliance on donations. But In the case of doggy daycare, that's great for people going on vacation, and we're really happy and excited to build that relationship for folks. But equally as important is, imagine when somebody gets evicted and they just need support for 2 weeks till they find their new home. What are they going to do with that pet in the meantime? Well, we can provide emergency boarding for 2 or 3 weeks. We'll take care of Fluffy for you and make sure that he's ready to go as soon as you find your new home.
Let's get down to some of the nitty-gritty, the cost of this thing. How much is this massive renovation, this new campus, going to cost?
We've driven down the cost significantly. So we're going to build a 55,000 square foot facility along with that six plus acre master plan community. So it'll be massive, and we'll do it for less than $35 million. That's inclusive of state-of-the-art, you have to imagine there's a ton of x-ray equipment in here, operating equipment, oxygen tanks. It's like a hospital. It really is a hospital. Yeah. So you picture a human hospital you go into, there's a lot of similarities here. So that's the cost, and we're well on our way working with both financial investors as well as individual investors and donors to make it happen.
You have a unique way of raising some funds to pay for this. Tell us about this.
We do. I think, as I mentioned before, we are a charity, but we're also a business. And so increasingly, as we approach this project, we decided that it couldn't wait for donations to flow in, though we fully expect that they will. Yeah. We have well over 18,000 supporters that support us monthly, whether that be through communications, donations, but they're there for us. So we know donations will come in, but we're not prepared to slow down the project or stop because the need is just too crucial, and it's coming by 2030. Like, the stats won't change. In fact, maybe they'll get worse. So we need to get ahead of that. And so that led us to think about what is a different way to finance this project. And most charities would not be eligible for a lot of institutional financing. It can be challenging to get approval. And so we started working on some pretty detailed financial forecasts to say, what can we do in this building? What are we really going to accomplish? And what it led us to believe was, well, we might actually be able to find some individual investors in our community who'd be willing to give us a short-term loan with interest payments like any other loan and principal at maturity, and support a project they directly care about. You can invest today in ETFs or funds that have a diversified portfolio that do support maybe like green bonds, great causes. Maybe I don't want to put my money in fossil fuels, but this is a direct investment into one project that you care about. So you literally can put your money somewhere and know exactly where it's going. Then you'll be able to see it at the end. So it's very exciting. Our bonds are called the SPCA community bonds, and we're off to a really good start after announcing them on Tuesday.
So where can people get them?
They can visit unleashlove.ca. They're actually not publicly available right now.
Okay.
So we announced on Tuesday to the community what those bonds will be. You can see those bonds on our website as well. So there's nothing hidden to our community. But we're building up our initial base first, and we'll actually go public with them next year. It will literally be as simple next year as visiting our website. You'll be able to purchase a bond with a credit card if you wish.
Awesome. Other SPCAs are probably looking at this and thinking, we should probably do the same. Have you received any feedback or any other SPCA saying, hey, how are you doing this?
A ton. And also, it's important to let you know that we're a bit of a leader across Ontario. We actually lead a network of other SPCAs across Ontario, and some of them are now stretching beyond Ontario. And we support all of them in best practices. So when we launched that new adoption software, we coached them and trained and supported some of them on it if they were interested in using that software, because we don't intend to keep this proprietary to us. We should be supporting everybody. So this is no different. We're definitely seeing a lot of interest and attraction to this, but we're already preparing for that. And that's what's probably going to be very interesting to our investors, which is that typically in community bonds across Canada, it's a relatively new product, but from what we see in other community bonds, usually in the housing space, we usually see up to like a 70% reinvestment by the time the project is completed. What that means for us is we're actually ready to repay all those bonds at that time. And so we can then ask those investors if they'd like to reinvest those bonds for us to support other SPCAs. Right. And so we actually, in theory, could become an SPCA bank, if you will, to support the other SPCAs on building other capital projects as well.
And building a massive snowball that's going to get bigger and bigger to aid other SPCAs.
That's right.
Yeah. Among all the things we've talked about today, what are you most excited about?
I mean, I'm obviously most excited for how the pets will feel in that space. I live and breathe the shelter every day, and our staff does everything they can with every square foot we have. We've turned every office into a cat room. So we have done everything. We'll do anything for those pets. And I think I am just so excited for us to not be throttled any longer by space.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing a truly pet-first development that for the first time, I think we're always in such a rush to get the pets out of the shelter because we know it can be stressful in there. I don't want to say the pets are going to be unhappy to leave this place, but they're definitely going to have a much better stay, and I think that's important.
Yeah. Was there, kind of harking back to the beginning, I know this has been a years-long process, was there a moment, a breaking point, someone saying, we have to do something different?
Are you talking more on the financing side? Or
I'm talking more of this whole idea. Like, we need to do something different than what we have been doing for so long.
I think the writing's been on the wall for a while.
Yeah.
I think most SPCAs, ourselves included until just a few years ago, we didn't know how to tackle it because it is ambitious. And quite frankly, I think it's not possible without the community bond and the investment approach. Yeah. The market is just not there for anything else. And so I think it started a few years ago, but we had a conversation. I come from the startup space, and I've actually raised, with some partners, a pretty similar level of money in the startup space. And when we started really thinking about this, we thought, why can't charities also raise capital from the private sector? Why does it always have to be institutional financing? So I think it's been a long time coming, but I think it was that marriage of realizing we actually can use financing as a way to challenge ourselves to build more than what we thought we could.
The word game changer is used for, ideas like this. Do you feel that this is going to be a game changer?
I love that word. Absolutely. I think it will be a game changer for pets in our community, but also people. Let's not underestimate the fact that pets are interwoven into all of our lives, and it will be a game changer for the pets that are in our care. But I think more so than anything else, there's so many people in our community that have not connected with the SPCA. You might have adopted a cat 10 years ago, and then maybe we haven't seen you in 10 years. We're now going to probably see you multiple times a year. And it's not just going to be for adoption. It's also not just going to be for the sad times. It's going to be for some fun times.
Right. That's a great idea. All the best in this ambitious plan. Looking forward to seeing its creation and its eventual conclusion and its impact on the community.
Well, thank you so much for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us. And that's a wrap for this edition of the Newsmakers Podcast. A big thank you to the all-star cast behind the scenes. If you liked today's episode, click the thumbs up, hit subscribe, and leave a comment. You can catch the Newsmakers Podcast on chch.com/podcasts and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.